Welcome back to the Chester Centurions Podcast, where we uncover the real stories behind entrepreneurship, from leap of faith beginnings to the gritty lessons that fuel long-term success. Today's guest is David Goodfellow, a man who turned a career in home improvements and operations into a thriving property business. After nearly 2 decades in employment, Dave found himself out of a job, sacked, in fact, for telling his CEO some uncomfortable truths. What followed was a bold move into the world of serviced accommodation, and in just a few short years, Dave has built a 75 property portfolio and a fast-growing hospitality business. In this episode, Dave shares how getting fired gave him the push he needed to go all in on property, why passive income is a myth and real business takes real graft, how he used his entrepreneurial instinct during the pandemic to grow while others were retreating, why structured family time and a default diary are his keys to balance in an always-on world. We also talk future goals, social housing, battery storage, and what it really means to think like a visionary. If you're considering a move into property or just need some straight-talking inspiration from someone who's walked the walk, this one's for you. Let's dive in. Hello, David, and welcome to the Chester Centurion Podcast.
Thank you very much for having me, Alan. I appreciate you getting me on.
You're very welcome. So, listen, before we get started today, I'd love to know a little bit more about Ikonic Property and what it is you do and how long you've been trading, and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Okay, no problem. So how far back do you want me to go? sit here for the next week and talk about myself. I'm pretty good at that. So let me go back to where I started my career, I suppose. So I was very much a person who was employed. If I go back to my early 20s, which I can't tell you how long ago that was, I started my career in a home improvements company. And I worked my way up there to sort of operations director level, left for a couple of years and then to a smaller company and then went back there. During that time, I did all sorts of stuff from, booking out service engineers right at the bottom, all the way up to dealing with, multi-million pounds worth of revenue and high-end blue chip company sort of directorships and CEOs and dealing with that sort of stuff in the boardrooms and all that. Mm-hmm. And whilst I was at Everest, was the company, I picked up loads of different skills. So one of my jobs was project managing huge sort of conservatory contracts on the Isle of Man for really high net worth individuals. So the property side, and that kind of links into the property side of things. So I kind of knew how to manage a development, if you like. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So, I had a few quid lying around, decided to go out and purchase my first property around 15 years ago. Developed my first investment property, if you like. I had my own house, but, not buying investment properties to do up and sell on. So did that for a number of years. Would purchase a property, maybe at auction or whatever, develop them, add value to them, and then sell them on. I then had a small buy-to-let portfolio. Got really annoyed with people being in my properties and not paying me. Would you believe? And didn't like that control element, not having that control element of being able to remove somebody from a property that wasn't paying and paying them to stay in my house. So I decided to get educated, go down the route of property education, and I came across this world of serviced accommodation, if you like, or holiday lets or short-term rentals, whatever you want to call it. There's so many different things to call it. Around 6 years ago, that was or 7 years ago now, nearly 8 years ago, my other half fell pregnant. I was working away all the time. I was going away on a Sunday evening, coming back on a Friday evening, being like a zombie for a couple of days and then getting my bags packed and going again. So I thought, right, I can't do this forever. I need to get a different job, which was property. I kind of knew a little bit about property already, but I needed a higher cash flowing business to kind of help me get away from my job. So started serviced accommodation business in 2018, November. I was out of my job by March 2019. Actually, not by choice. I got sacked. Because I told the CEO that she didn't know what she was doing, and the business would be out of business in the next 12 months if she carried on doing what she was doing.
Oh my gosh! Okay.
Guess what happened to Everest? It was back then. So I got the sack, but I'd been working in the background. I kind of knew it was coming, and I, raised the cash in the background to not quite replace my salary, but get me on the way to building my own property business. So I continued to do that for a number of years, developing properties, building my own portfolio, and renting other people's properties as well. And then using the same model to make a few quid off of that. And then started managing other people's properties. A couple of years ago, found out that I'd built another job for myself. So I started offloading the people that I was working for again. And now we kind of develop our own stuff. And we're into the world of sort of holiday let, serviced accommodation, apart hotels, and we're kind of growing our business from there, really.
Very good. And going back to March 2019, and I'd usually ask what's the motivator behind starting your own business. I think you've been pretty clear on that from the start, Dave. But how did it make you feel? Like all of a sudden you've gone from the security of being employed to being responsible for the revenue coming into your family. How did that make you feel?
You know what? That's a great question. I can still remember the drive home after that happened. So in my car, sort of thinking, what the hell's just happened? Because you've gone from this whole world of security, really, where you've got a secure income, and you've been there for it's like 15 to 17 years. I worked for the company, on and off. And I went from this kind of really safe place to, shit, I've got to do this myself now.
Yeah.
If I can't sit back, I've got to make this happen. Otherwise, how am I going to pay the bills? How am I going to keep my family? How's my daughter going to survive?
Yeah.
All that sort of stuff. So that was a really scary moment. But I also think in those moments of fear is where you adapt the best.
Yeah.
Because you've got to make it work, right?
You have.
Well, your next thing is, right, well, what am I going to do? What's the next thing for me?
I think there's a lot of successful businesses get born out of, I've got to make this happen. It's almost like my back's against the wall. The only way forward is I've got to tackle this head on. And you'd be surprised how common that is. Well, no, probably not, but it is a common trait with entrepreneurs is there's no option here. I have to make this work. And where is the business now? You said you've gone through a period of fairly rapid growth. Where are we at this point?
So, in terms of what revenue or how many?
Well, no, I mean, how big's the team? How big's your property portfolio?
Yeah, so the portfolio, we've around 75 properties.
Wow.
My team is it's not a massive team. There's three of us that are business partners. David and Harry are my two business partners. David keeps an eye on the sort of maintenance and the property health side of things, make sure everything's working properly. Harry's the numbers guy and goes through our accounts and tells me that I'm spending money on the wrong things all the time and all that jazz. And I'm very much the kind of salesperson, the deal maker, the visionary, if you like.
Very good. So what are some of the common misconceptions about running a business, and how do you go about addressing them?
Well, number one, that it's easy. You can just jump into something and it happens. I see a lot of gurus out there, especially in the property industry, where these people that turn up, been in the business for like 6 months, and they're selling courses on how to create a property empire. So the idea that property is easy is it's not. The other misconception within this market is the passive income thing. I hate that. It's I've never known any business that's been passive. I've had passive income from ever. So yeah, I think they're the main things. The ease of running your own business and the passive income thing is just never happens.
So it's not easy. There's no quick wins in this life, right?
No.
And you have to put a shift in.
Yeah, it's a long term. There's no kind of silver bullet. It's very much a business that you grow over a period of time. And yeah, if anybody out there that thinks they can come and do a property course over a weekend and then build a business and be passive in a few months' times, yeah, that's not quite right.
Do you mean I don't get to sit on the beach with my laptop?
No, that's rubbish. Watching the money come in on your phone, they all sell it. It never works like that.
Okay. Thank you for that, Dave. I'll make sure I don't. So how do you maintain a work-life balance as a business owner? And do you have any sort of personal rituals or habits that keep you motivated and focused?
Yeah, that's a great question again. So I'm very much a family person. Does having your own business get in the way of that sometimes? Well, yeah, of course it does. You never really switch off as a business owner, in my opinion. The problem you have these days is the communication and your phone and your emails, your notifications that are popping up all the time. It makes it difficult to switch off.
Mm-hmm.
So I try and, when I get home at night, try and put my phone on the side and take it away. And if I want to go and spend some time with my daughter, it's quality time. I'm very much a structure person. So I will, if you were to have a look at my Google Calendar now, it would be blocked out for family time. It'd have blocks out for, time with Evie, blocks out for time at home, blocks out for cooking for the family. So I very much use my structured approach to my calendar to help me manage my time with the family as well. And I like to try and get a bit of a balance with that. Do I do it all the time? No. But working towards that kind of work-life balance is very much something that I do on a regular basis and try and work on it and get it better and better.
Listen, I think there's a little bit of a golden nugget in there about the default diary. And, some of the most successful people on the planet use that for absolutely maximizing their effectiveness when it comes to their time. They also use it to make sure that they're spending enough time with friends and family as well.
Yeah.
The one that springs to mind is Barack Obama. Barack Obama was famous for splitting his whole day into 15-minute chunks and using every single one of those chunks to spend time with family or friends or run the free world.
And I think it's important that you do get that balance, because it can be so easy just to fill your calendars with so much work and not take time for yourself or your family.
It's also true that successful people will be deliberate with their weekends as well. They won't waste time. There's only 3 things you can do with time. You can invest it, you can spend it, or you can waste it. And I think there's a real lesson for a lot of people here on the default diary. The way you've approached that is really cool. Thank you for that, Dave. So, listen, business is moving faster than it's ever moved. We all know that. I think the business landscape is changing. How do you stay adaptable and open to change? Are there any specific strategies you use to remain innovative?
So I think as entrepreneurs, and I very much class myself as an entrepreneur, not an investor. And there's a big difference between the two. I'm very much somebody who's always adapting to change within the market or within the property arena. I'll give you a prime example of that. So, my business was running for about 18 months to 2 years, and then the COVID happened, right? And we're in holiday let serviced accommodation. I mean, we should have really closed the business, right? Because when Boris Johnson at the time came on and said, right, there's no more business travel, there's no more traveling, and you've got to stay at home, you're not allowed to go to work. Well, that was 100% of our business. So all of our leisure clients and our business clients were not traveling anymore. Where were we going to get our money from? So I remember at the time thinking, right, how are we going to adapt to this situation? What are we going to do differently? And this is where I find that the entrepreneurial spirit comes in. So whenever there's a problem that happens, as an entrepreneur, you find a solution for it. So problem hits on the desk, whether that's a small one or a big one. This was a relatively big one. You always have an angle to adapt to finding a solution to that. So my solution at the time was, right, well, if there's no leisure and no business traveling, who's going to be busy right now? Who's going to be busy? Well, the NHS are going to be busy, and power stations have still got to work.
Mm-hmm.
There's certain elements in the UK that can't just close down. So my first port of call was my mother's a nurse. I give her a call. Where do people come from to stay at in the NHS? Is there like a place where they would stay? She says, yeah, we have an accommodation officer. Like, right, okay, that sounds good. Phone, speak to the accommodation officer. I got the contract in Chester for keeping people, and for housing people in the NHS. And you might think, well, when they're just staying at home, well, do you remember they had to safeguard themselves from their family if there was anything? Well, the government were paying out for that. The NHS were paying out for that. So we filled probably 50% of our properties that we had at the time with NHS staff. Whether that was doctors, radiologists, whatever it was, we did that. And then the second half was key workers. So all these people that were working at power stations and such like, or construction sites that were being built for something that was classed as key workers. I got the key worker register off of the council, rung every single one of them, and filled the rest of them with that. We got to the point where we actually quadrupled the size of our business because we were doing the opposite of what the crowd were doing. So while everybody else was running away from COVID, we were running towards it, going, right, well, I need more properties. So I've taken this contract from the NHS, I've taken key workers on board, and we need more stuff. So that's a kind of that's quite a long-winded answer to your question, but it gives some perspective around what an entrepreneur is.
It's a great answer, actually, and being able to have the foresight and the vision to look forward and say, this is coming. How can I adapt? How can I change? I'm not going to use the word pivot because I think it was overused during COVID, so we won't talk about that. But definitely adaptable and definitely open to change. I think that's really cool. If you were to offer a glimpse into the future plans and the goals for the business, what do you envisage the next chapter of your journey?
Okay, so my service accommodation business, I've just built a hotel in Llandudno, and that's full with people. And I've we've talked about Traction and Rocket Fuel, the book Before Traction with
Beautiful.
Gina Whitman. Yeah. I'm very much the visionary in my business, so I've always got the big ideas. Some of them are sometimes they're too big, and I need somebody to pull me back. But I'm very much somebody that likes to start a business, wrap it into little chunks, give that off to different people, and then I'm off onto something else. So I've done that with the serviced accommodation business, and I've kind of reinvigorated it a couple of times. So we've gone from leisure clients to COVID to back to leisure, then back to more contractor-based stuff, where we filled a lot of our places with contractors on longer term stays, like mid or what we call mid-term stays. So we've kind of done everything in the serviced accommodation arena, and that business will continue to grow organically. We've done the rent to rents, we've developed our own stuff. The management stuff we're kind of moving away from. Managing other people's properties we're kind of moving away from. But my next big thing is, like, well, what's next for us? So we looked into some social housing stuff because we know there's a big demand for that.
Mm-hmm.
And my next piece is renewables and battery storage. So developing land, buying land and developing battery storage sites that store energy and then can be sold back to the grid.
Interesting. Listen, this has been really, really interesting. I've got two more questions for you, Dave. But first of all, thank you for coming on today. I've really appreciated this, and it's been a real insight into the whole world of property and investing and growing a business. Really cool. I was always taught there's only three ways to get your money working for you, and that is stocks and shares, business and of course property. If I wanted to get my money working for me in property, how would I go about that?
So I'm going to answer this in two slightly different ways. I think a property business is very different to a to a business, and I think a serviced accommodation business, or what I do, isn't a property business per se. It's more hospitality. I think a lot of the property stuff now, the old buy-to-lets and all that sort of stuff, I honestly think it's dead. There's not much money to be made in it now, and the government are continuously kind of hitting that market and slapping on taxes, and it's made it very difficult unless you're a huge business, like Lloyd's are getting into that arena now. I think it's very difficult to make your money in property, and the returns are very little. But a cash flowing business like serviced accommodation, where your property is kind of your little tool, but the actual business is hospitality, where people are coming in and out, and the cash flows there. That's a different matter.
But if I was looking to invest, is that something that would it be with someone like yourself, Dave? Or
yeah, I think if you were looking to get your money working for you in the property industry, then you've got two ways of doing that. You can either do it yourself, you can get trained, and you can educate yourself and make the mistakes and whatever.
Yeah, I'm too old for that.
Or you just invest in somebody. So we take investors on. We'll give returns depending on the project or the risk involved in the project. Between 8 to 12% normally per annum, which is a pretty good.
That's good.
Pretty good return for most people. I would. If you're going to do that though, just make sure that you do your due diligence. Obviously, you make sure that the person is who they say they are, because there's quite a lot. Again, there's a lot of sharks out there in the industry. There's a lot of people being burnt by these sharks. But yeah, get involved with people that know what they're doing.
So make sure you're not talking to someone sitting on a beach with a laptop after watching a YouTube video, right?
Exactly that. Exactly that.
No, cool. Thank you. And my last question is a biggie. So if you could offer 3 pieces of advice to, I guess, an aspiring entrepreneur just wanting to get started, or maybe someone who's struggling in business, what's your 3 top tips? What's your 3 top pieces of advice?
Okay, number 1.
Yeah.
Surround yourself with individuals that are like-minded. Don't put yourself in a room of people that are behind you. You want to be the person who's got the least amount of knowledge in that room. Oh. That's 2, isn't it? I'll take 2 from that. Surround yourself with like-minded people. That's number 1. When you make sure you're in, if you're in a group of people, make sure you're the person that's the furthest behind, because those people that are in front of you are going to be able to give you guidance and help you grow. And lastly, make sure that what you're doing you enjoy, because if you enjoy what you do, you'll never work another day in your life.
Beautiful. Surround yourself with like-minded people. Surround yourself with like-minded people. If you're the biggest guy in the room, you're in the wrong room. Be in the right room and enjoy the journey. Enjoy it. Beautiful. Thank you, Dave. And as I said again, a real pleasure having you on today. Thank you very much.
Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it, Alan.
Hopefully we'll chat soon. Thank you.